This episode of Dead Man Walking is brought to you by Sony, making aggressively terrible films since 1994.
Wrong, and you should just hit yourself in the face until you change your mind.
The gold standard for dumb storytelling.
Netflix doesn't make real movies,
But controversy.
Martin 2020.
Benny Doodle Cummerbund.
Good job, Luke. You did it.
What? His creepy lip. What?
I'm the new Kool-Aid man. I'm Dan.
I'm Louie.
You're listening to Dead Man Walking. Because not even symbiosis is gonna save this one. From these deep wounds.
So this weekend we saw Venom, the romantic comedy of the season about a plucky, headstrong, investigative reporter who is living the dream and engaged to the woman he loves.
Woman of his dreams.
Until his big mouth gets him into trouble and ruins everything. Join our hero as he enlists the help of a stranger from out of town to uncover the scoop of a lifetime, win back his best gal, and learn a little something about himself along the way.
All right, there, you got it. We're wrapping up now.
I mean, if we're really honest, that was the story the screenwriter clearly wanted to tell, and Sony was like, you know what would make this better? If we just had a giant man-eating monster from space.
I think the opposite is what the movie was better at, but sure. I mean, sure, Venom is the story about a world where there are no superheroes, at least to start with.
Because
which is weird.
Sony sold the rights to them.
Yeah, well, it's weird because, we're seeing a Marvel movie that doesn't have any established universe, which is the way things were. That setup feels done to death.
Well, let's be clear. Everything about this film's development is an example of just everything that is wrong with Sony. The idea of a Venom movie has apparently been bouncing around since like the late 90s. They wanted Dolph Lundgren to play Venom.
Oh, to be like in a black suit?
Yes, which that was a missed opportunity.
That would have been great. That's like when the Hulk used to be just a big dude painted green.
So basically from the moment that Sony got their hands on the rights for Spider-Man, everything has just been this corporate profit calculation with Venom as that newfangled villain that all the edgy kids are into. And after seeing Disney make a massively popular movie with Spider-Man right after they signed the rights over, you can just imagine the sweating corporate execs trying to figure out a way to capitalize on what they have left.
Well, they still have Spider-Man. They just kind of made deals to let Disney use Spider-Man and essentially let Marvel Studios make a movie under Columbia Pictures that still says Spider-Man so that Sony can rake in the dough off of Marvel Studios talent.
But still, it's gotta hurt. But yeah, no, after taking the defibrillators to the screenplay in 2016, flailing around for a director for about a year and going through a whole bunch of revisions, apparently there were a lot of reshoots too, we're presented with a careful...
What? Of course there was reshoots. Why wouldn't there be reshoots? Every movie has reshoots.
Well, either way, we get this careful, boardroom-driven film about a villain who started out as Spider-Man's costume that has absolutely no mention of Spider-Man in it whatsoever.
All right, guys, I think we got a perfectly good movie here. Nah, hang on a sec. We got to make it more like other movies. Reshoots.
There's even a part where he's like talking about the paper he used to work for, and he's like Globe.
Oh yeah, I caught that. They call it the Daily Globe incident. I was like, excuse me?
Just say Bugle. No one cares. Just say Bugle. Like, by literally every metric, this movie should have been an explosive disaster just from liftoff. But it wasn't. Like, it wasn't good. I mean, it's better than Spider-Man 3, but that's a pretty low bar. But
Spider-Man 3 is on Netflix right now. You can watch that.
That's how bad it is.
So you can lower the bar in time to see this movie.
So it wasn't good, but at the same time, it was weirdly entertaining. At least to me.
I'll say it got entertaining at parts, I thought.
I think it's almost entirely due to... Ruben Fleischer, the guy behind Zombieland, who has a
that's what I was about to say. I saw his name come up, and I thought, where did I see him before? So he made Zombieland, 30 Minutes or Less, and something else that had like actors from Zombieland in it.
Well, there's a movie called Gangster Squad that he made that has like Sean Penn and Josh Brolin, like a real actor movie that was actually pretty terrible, but I mean,
Yeah, Gangster Squad wasn't good.
but
was
that
boring.
tongue-in-cheek humor is what this movie is all about. And I feel like a chunk of it's also to Tom Hardy, who's apparently a self-proclaimed Venom fanboy, which doesn't really surprise me.
And he played the heck out of it. So I guess
did.
that's where we get into the better part of this.
This movie was a film made by Venom fans for Venom fans. And apparently Venom fans have just absolutely loved it. It's like broken some kind of October box office record.
You know what else the Venom fans like?
Weird tattoos.
I checked the YouTube page for the Eminem Venom song.
Well, he did tease that in his Kamikaze album last month.
People are loving that, apparently.
It's the same type of people that like Venom. I mean, the movie was a bit of a ride once it got going, but it takes a while to get there. The first act is just a slog.
Yes, I would agree.
Like, literally nothing about Eddie Brock living the dream feels authentic, and Tom Hardy's character is just so irritating that when he's finally ruined, you have a hard time feeling bad for him. You're just like,
No.
good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
You have a popular viral reporter who loses his job. This isn't a spoiler because it's the
He
very beginning.
absolutely needed to lose his job. I was thinking, like, yeah, of course he would get fired. He failed to follow basic instructions.
And instead of just like opening up an internet show with a Patreon account like anybody else would, he drinks himself into a stupor. And in a world where WikiLeaks is a thing, he has no idea what to do with all of his critical evidence. It's just like, you deserve it. It's this jerky, inconsistent tone that lurches through starts and stops and is just annoying to sit through.
Yeah, I don't know who was writing this.
It doesn't find any rhythm until the Venom symbiote is actually introduced to Tom Hardy.
In which case, I think that's where, like, the movie really started.
And the way they did it, it was actually kind of cool because you get some like creepy, almost like demonic possession overtones until the final reveal happens. We're presented with this sassy buddy cop anti-hero film, and then it's that kind of film.
Of course, it's going to be reminiscent of demon possession. We're talking about a monster that has anglerfish teeth with a devil tongue whipping out of it. Like, this thing is the stuff
Thank you,
of
Todd McFarlane.
This thing is the stuff of nightmares. Like, it really is. And I mean,
Actually, I found out, for if there's any like hardcore comic fanboys listening, Todd McFarlane, the guy who created Venom, is not actually responsible for the long tongue thing. That was somebody else. If you know any of his other artwork, you would have expected that to be him from the get-go, but a rare moment of restraint.
the tongue thing. Oh man, and they use the tongue thing too. It licks people before munching.
I use my tongue to lick people.
Speaking of the munching, all right, this movie is PG-13, and I often wondered if they weren't trying to go, like, if Ruben Fleischer wasn't trying to get, like,
It really feels
harder
like they
rating out of
shot
that.
an R-rated film and then cut it down to a PG-13 rated film, because they've been doing interviews saying, well, I mean, we're not going to put, like, Spider-Man in the movie, but it's, I mean, if Disney wanted Spider-Man Venom crossover, we'd be fine with it. It's pretty transparent what they desperately
I thought
wanted.
maybe this movie was going to try to ride off of the Deadpool popularity.
Well, because Deadpool...
And it sort of does, because it exclaims that it's an anti-hero, which is weird.
It does, but Deadpool is content to exist like on the fringes as an outside character. Sony clearly desperately wants to somehow get back into the Spider-Man business, and Disney is not going to let that happen if they make an R-rated film. Now, I will say, I think that the bromance we get between Venom and Eddie Brock as they are like debating biting people's heads off, I think that's what saves the film, to be honest. Because it's not the villains. They aren't any more memorable than his love interest, who
No, and
I literally can't remember her name without Google. I don't even know who she is.
Okay, did you think maybe, like, instead of trying to pick, like, one villain or, like, one villain organization, it could have just been any number of things. Just, like, a bad mafia thing over here, and then maybe the corporate thing at the end. Like, we didn't need to keep cutting back to just one guy.
It would have... There's so many more interesting directions they could have taken the actual story, but again, the sassy banter between the symbiote and the hapless reporter as they dish out a spot of the old ultraviolence was surprisingly entertaining, but it was the only really entertaining thing.
Sure, cutaway ultraviolence.
I'm going to bite this man's head off
Yeah.
and fade to black.
Yeah. Munch. I thought they were going to cross the line a few times with the violence, because at the very beginning, you get that shot of the, like, symbiote-possessed woman limping along.
Like a
but she has, like,
broken
a broken leg, and you see... I thought you said, like, pieces of bone sticking out of it, too.
I feel like it's the F-bomb. They're allowed one, and it's still a PG-13 movie.
They didn't get one out.
No, but I'm saying in terms of, like, that is to violence what the F-bomb rule is to language.
Sure.
It's like, all right, you can have, like, one piece of bone, but after that, R rating.
All right, why don't we get into spoilers?
I do want to wrap
okay.
up just by saying, like, the final climax is also disappointing because it's got that visually confusing pitch black cinematography hell that we can't seem to escape from, but that's every film. But I will say overall, this film was better. It was better than it had any right to be. At the end of the day, it's a B movie with an A movie budget, and a lead actor who clearly loves the source material, and that's a combination that does make for a watchable film. But that said, even though they cut him out of the origin, Spider-Man needs to be here. Venom needs Spider-Man. It's something terrible, as much as this franchise needs a direction. So this may be the first of several unrequited love letters that Sony is sending to Disney.
Venom needed other colorful comic book characters that weren't just other symbiotes. That's the problem. It falls into the same trap that a bunch of other older superhero movies did, where it's just evil version of superhero. That's what the first Iron Man was. That's what
the first Hulk was.
The first, yeah, right. There's a lot of these.
The first Ant-Man. Look, it's me, but worse. All right, so Dan, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. What was good about the Venom movie?
So I thought that the action scenes and dialogue we said between Brock and Venom are actually good. Not entirely, but they definitely stood out enough where I can see how this movie got sold to producers. As soon as he gets possessed, like, there's that moment where, you know, at first he's going hungry. It's very, like, simple. Venom just wants to eat stuff and eat living things. He wants to feel things squirming down his throat, I guess. And then the bad guys show up to go take Eddie Brock in, and his hands are up because, of course, there's guns pointed at him. And Venom says, "No, put your hands down. You're making us look bad." It's just, and then
that's when the switch flips, and you're like, "Oh, it's that kind of movie."
And then he's doing this like up and down. You're like, "Okay, this is actually kind of entertaining." I'm sad that I had to wait 30 minutes for this, but yeah, I'm glad we're finally here.
Tom Hardy's Venom. It's just that it's that right combination of psychotic, primal, edgy, yet weirdly sympathetic, drooling monster. Just the relationship between the two of them is pretty fun.
Like I said, the movie could have started with him getting the symbiote, and it would have significantly affected my overall enjoyment for this movie, for the better.
Yeah, if we didn't have to wait 20 minutes for it to get good, actually even 20 minutes is probably being generous. It was like, what, like a half hour at the minimum?
Which is weird, because going into this, I didn't think that seeing Venom was going to be good. Like, I didn't really know anything about the Venom character, and the trailers seemed apprehensive about even showing us.
And
Venom?
honestly, like that was something that I was pleasantly surprised by, the character design of Venom. In Spider-Man 3, which is the only other time we've seen him on the big screen, we get this anemic guy that's just Topher Grace in a bodysuit combined with a CGI head. So we get this villain that looks a bit like an angry bobblehead with teeth. But in this, we have like the giant, hulking, shape-shifting monster that we were expecting. And it looks pretty sweet.
And Tom Hardy really does play the hell out of it. When he is that character, I'll say. He does a really good job acting as this person who's like fighting this inner demon constantly that wants to keep breaking out of him. And he's finding a way to like reconcile with this.
Tom Hardy is a good actor, but he acts weird. That's how he acts best, is when he's being
and
weird.
So when he's like the normal person before the movie, you don't really want to watch it. But then once he becomes the demon-possessed person, now all of a sudden he's fun.
I mean, I don't know. What else is good, would you say?
That's it.
So for me, I've got something that starts out good and then kind of just segues into the bad. The good is, like, we're talking about their relationship, and they have that moment of the self-aware self-sacrifice at the end where the symbiote, Venom, as a character, progresses to the point where he chooses to sacrifice himself to save Eddie Brock. He burns up in the flames of a sabotage rocket to save Eddie's life, and it was sudden, it was emotional, and it kind of solidified the underlying redemption arc the film was trying to give Venom, because Venom's like, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm not all bad. But the bad is that Venom didn't actually die, so it doesn't mean anything. Now, obviously, we know that Sony isn't going to kill a character when sequels can be made, but instead of doing something like showing Brock coping without superpowers and then like waking up one night to hear Venom's voice, it's just like, boom, right after the explosion, surprise, I'm still Venom. And there's just no missed beat. And it's just like any emotional capital's gone.
I think I would have been happier with that, or I would have even noticed a redemption arc if it felt like there were a progression between these two characters. So like I said, I thought they were fun to watch them kind of do their shtick.
A progression, a sense of loss, a sense of something, but you just had this like same...
Well, this is where like...
flatline.
When he does the self-sacrifice thing at that point, like I didn't feel a whole lot at that point still. It just kind of felt like this is the next beat of the movie.
Again, it was this jerky start-stop thing tonally the whole way through the film. My other big gripe is just that the villains are boring and stupid, and literally every supporting character is utterly forgettable. There's no way around it. And honestly, Sony kind of did it to themselves because they're making the Suicide Squad mistake of taking a villainous character whose entire existence is defined by the heroes they oppose and just cutting the heroes out and trying to find even bigger baddies that they can take down instead. Like the villain, the two villains in this, the corporate guy whose name I can't remember and the other symbiote, Riot, are from the comics. But the way they're just introduced in the movie, it's just like this cookie cutter evil guy.
Just
and
extremely
you just don't care.
Cookie cutter, just so corny.
Like the other symbiote is just another symbiote who's slightly more dedicated to eating people than Venom is. And so you're like, okay, they're just punching each other over creative differences.
Well, before he even gets the symbiote, I can't even remember this guy's name, and I just don't care. I'm not going to look it up. Generic evil science man.
I'm brilliant, and because I'm brilliant, I know what's best for the Earth. And for some reason, what's best for the Earth involves killing everyone.
Right, we see him in a lab with this woman because they just got their symbiote test subjects back, and he's like, we need to start human trials right away. Like they test one rat, and he's just like, we start human trials immediately. Like,
scientists are understandably like, what?
Yeah. And
we're just going down a checkbox like, yep, evil, right. Twirling mustache, mean laugh,
and then the woman that's there, like, even though all the signs are there beforehand that this guy's evil, she's like, I don't believe it. I thought I could believe in what he did. I thought I could trust him.
It was after the third homeless person he brutally murdered. I thought, maybe this isn't working out.
It's not convincing in the slightest. His whole performance.
The other beef I kind of have is, at least initially, when the whole symbiote thing starts, there's a lot of flashbacks to that Upgrade movie we saw earlier this year.
Okay. Wow.
What is the whole idea of a guy waking up to something in his brain that's controlling his body and giving him powers he's not familiar with, and he's just kind of along for the ride. Not saying it was original idea in Upgrade, not saying that Venom doesn't have a right to do that, but the two movies were released like, 5 months apart, if that? So there's
5 or 6 months apart, yeah.
So I don't know, it's just like, oh, that's very similar. I don't know.
Sure, I could see the similarity there. Yeah, Upgrade was a little more clever about its action.
I would agree.
It did a lot more camera tricks.
Actually, seeing Venom has made me appreciate Upgrade more. If that makes any sense.
Sure.
What did you hate about Venom? What was bad?
Well, the whole movie opens terribly. There's unnecessary exposition. There's just happens to be this spaceship flying from some other place. We just happen to pick up these symbiotes. And they're bringing him back. It's just the cheapest, easiest.
Flashbacks were clearly needed for some of the things that we were just kind of being tossed into, because it's like...
Right, there's like, we happen to bring aliens back.
From where? Where did you go?
Yeah.
And later on, they're like, we visited an asteroid.
And then it crashes, which, like, okay, like, after you learn what the symbiotes are, okay, we can understand maybe why the ship crashed. We didn't need too much explanation for that, which it didn't give. We don't care about Eddie Brock. His introduction of his characters is like he's engaged to the woman of his dreams, and there's this montage of him going on his investigative reporting and it's dumb.
There's also some like weird like SJW overtones, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it just, I don't know, like the whole thing just felt like really, really forced. Like, he's the reporter you're supposed to love. I'm like,
Yeah, no, that's what it was.
I don't care.
It felt like they were saying, "Oh, we're supposed to love this guy because he is just bringing down everybody."
Look at him kiss this puppy. Look at him smack this Wall Street fat cat.
Right.
It's like,
he's bringing you the hard-hitting truths.
Once again, we're just going down,
and it's
checking
just
boxes.
Yeah, and it's just these like split screen cuts of him going from place to place, and that's the montage is him talking over himself immediately. And you don't care. It's not effective at all. And
when you want
there was more than like 3 or 4 of these easy transition shots where they just do like a panning shot of the city, and that bothers me when they just do that back to back to back because it's lazy editing. There wasn't anything good that happened until finally the symbiote thing happened, and they started actually talking to one another and doing their shtick with one another. So everything up until then was just terrible.
So basically, this is a great on-screen representation of Venom, but it's not a great movie.
Yes, I thought that when we came out of the movie, my first thought was, wow, somebody must have shown really good test footage of Tom Hardy as Venom. And then Sony was like, cool, we'll get our writers on board to write a story around it.
Now, with any luck, like if you are a Venom fan, you need to be getting on your knees every night and praying to whatever deities you worship that Disney will see the numbers that Venom is pulling in and talk to Sony about taking Tom Hardy and pulling him into some Spider-Man crossover, because that's what we need to see. That's what Venom's meant to be, and it's a good Venom character.
I agree.
Whether or not, and it would be nice to see. It would be nice to see this good character in a good movie.
I felt similarly to the Venom character at the end of this movie that I felt toward Man of Steel at the end. And I'll admit that Man of Steel is at least a slightly better movie than this.
Thank you for that.
And that is, I would hope for better sequels.
Yes.
And
that little bit with Woody Harrelson at the end where like they just have him in like this orange floppy wig is what's the name of the guy that is Carnage? It's Clay something or other.
The character's name.
The character's name.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Carnage other than he's just more evil Venom.
Yes, basically.
And I thought Venom was evil until this movie told me that he wasn't.
He wasn't strictly evil in the comic books. He just really, really hated Spider-Man. And that was about it. He's like, I'm better at being Spider-Man, but also I've got anger issues. He was the late 80s, early 90s anti-hero, like in every possible way. Just angsty and edgy for no good reason.
And you know what? He doesn't necessarily need Spider-Man if they can make the Venom versus Eddie Brock character dynamic work a little more. If they make that the main conflict.
And if they give him something like Carnage where there's like a distinct entity there rather than just another Venom who is also into punching things, because Carnage is like has a strict agenda of just being a crazy evil psychopath, which Venom doesn't really understand in the comic books. That might make for an interesting sequel. It just sucks that we have to go through this movie to get there.
Right.
So there's definitely some ugly things in this film too. For me, one of the ugly things was Tom Hardy's accent. Every film I've seen him in has had a different weird accent that he just mangles, and as God is my witness, Tom Hardy will learn to speak.
You think so?
No, I don't.
Tom Hardy he's one of those people you can't pinpoint an accent. He just talks like himself.
Mad Max, it was that like weird butchered Aussie accent. Lawless, it was that just like slurring West Virginia drawl that doesn't really sound like West Virginia. Bane is whatever that was. To you, the people.
I have a symbiote now. Come here, Spider-Man. Let me show you my tongue.
I would watch that film. So he's got like this inexplicable, like, but yet unplaceable New York accent that kind of comes and goes throughout the movie. It's just like, all right, whatever.
Every time, how much did you like? We already mentioned this. Yeah, every time he eats someone, it cuts away. I get that they can't blatantly show like that kind of viscera of when a giant anglerfish head man tears into somebody, but you could get a little You could get a little more creative with it.
It's one of those things where you don't want to see it, but you kind of want to see it once.
Or you at least want to show something where you get the idea. Yeah. So I'm thinking of there's really nice.
It pans to the side. You see like the legs thrashing.
there's a really nice cut in the new King Kong movie, the Kong Skull Island, where King Kong grabs one of the helicopters and one of the people fall out of it and fall towards Kong's mouth. And then before he clamps his jaws shut, it just cuts to a dude that's biting into a sandwich. So like, you get the idea in your head what happened, and they didn't have to show it.
Not quite as much tact here. The other ugly thing for me was it wasn't the fact that they shoehorned in Lady Venom, or I guess She Venom as she calls it. It's that led to a scene that involved Venom French kissing Venom.
I didn't mind it.
I'm uncomfortable.
I know you were.
When your character design involves an inhumanly long serpentine tongue from space, the time-honored sport of tongue jousting quickly becomes something that at least I don't want to see. And it was a long, lingering, loving shot of it.
It would have been better if Tom Hardy looked clearly uncomfortable with it.
But I was kind of into it, and that made me more uncomfortable.
That probably made it worse. But if it was... Actually, she should have showed up as herself, just walked over, and then gave him a kiss, and then suddenly, like, his eyes bulge out of his sockets and goes, "Oh no, what's going on?"
You know what? No, that would have been worse.
No, I would have liked it.
That would have been worse.
There's another point in this movie where, so we mentioned that you're allowed one F-bomb. Mm-hmm. There was definitely a point where Tom Hardy says F you. When the symbiote comes out of him, when they learn that like sound is his weakness, and they burst it out of him in the MRI room.
Yep.
He goes running out, and the symbiote's like latched up against the glass, and he goes up to it, and I distinctly saw his mouth the words F you, and then he runs off. But they dubbed it over with "We're through." I noticed it.
I did not see that.
I saw it.
They want that PG-13 rating because they need Tom Holland as Spider-Man. The movie is Venom. It needs to get Spider-Man. It needs to get him.
The advertising was terrible. It showed the final scene of the movie right away. I don't know if you noticed this or not. There was an ad that just played that scene out where he's in the convenience store and he turns into Venom and then grabs the guy and tells him that he's going to bite his arms and legs off.
I did not pick up on that.
Yeah. He said he's going to bite your arms and legs off, and your head, or in your face.
You'd be rolling down the street like a turd in the wind.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. He just says it.
I'll be honest. I'm not. It's not like I'm a connoisseur, but we live in a neighborhood with a lot of dogs. I've seen a lot of turds on the sidewalk in my day. They don't blow in the wind. They wait there on the sidewalk, lurking for you to not pay attention and step in them.
The original teaser trailer, the one where we said, it doesn't show Venom at all, it is of the clip where they first put him in the MRI, and they give him that scan. He starts freaking out because Venom doesn't like that sound. In the trailer, it's just Tom Hardy jerking his head around. In the movie, what it's supposed to be, what they should have showed, the Venom face was like flashing through.
Yeah. Like I said, you get those like overtones of demonic possession that are actually it's actually a little bit creepy right up until Venom's like, "What are you doing? You're making us look bad." Yeah. And you're like, "All right, never mind. I know where this is going."
The humor when it was there, like that was on point. Like that,
like I said, at the end of the day, it's a B movie with a huge budget. It made a ton of money. I'm actually kind of happy that it outdid A Star Is Born by like almost 2-1. Just because so many people have been pushing A Star Is Born so much. I haven't seen it, but everyone's like, it's going to be the greatest film. It's going to be an event. We're just going to... people are going to watch it, and they're going to remember it until Christmas. And it's just like, no, it just has Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper in it.
It's just a music movie. It's not anything super special.
I know, but still kind of want to see it. All the critics are treating it like this big cultural watershed. I'm like, nobody cares. It's being released in October.
It's because they liked it more than Venom. They want to give people a reason to go to the theater.
And then the best part about this is I was reading articles earlier today. Normally we don't, but all the Sony film executives were like, Well, we weren't expecting it to actually do good. We didn't think it would do bad, but holy crap, you guys really like Venom.
Wait, what?
They were expecting to bring home about half of what they did. They thought it was going to do okay. They're like, all right, we'll probably make like, I don't know, 70 million our opening weekend. And instead, like worldwide, they made like 200.
I think the movie
had
had
like 80 million domestically.
What was its budget? It was like 100 million budget? I'll find it in a sec.
Yeah. 100 million. And they were like, oh, we'll probably...
They made 80 million back the first
domestically,
weekend, just domestically. So they're definitely making their budget
worldwide,
back.
it was like another 120 million. Apparently, it was huge in Mexico and South Korea, of all places.
I imagine this would be popular as a foreign film because even though it has the trappings of superhero movies that we've seen before, that we mentioned before, the Venom character is unique enough that I think that draws people.
It does, and the fact that it did make profit in just its opening weekend says that we will probably see a sequel. So hopefully they will get a chance to make it right, because they did the character very well. They did the movie very poorly.
It's weird that I'm even saying that they did the Venom character right, or that the Venom character is interesting when he's essentially just an alien demon.
But it's just fun to see how it's basically Tom Hardy talking to Tom Hardy, but I like to imagine this is a conversation he has with himself in the mirror every morning. Either way,
no, we're not going to eat anybody. We're not going to jump headfirst into a tank and start eating the lobsters at the fancy restaurant.
We're going to go to the red carpet. We're going to shake all the hands. We're going to kiss all the babies. We will eat none of the babies. I guess at the end of the day, Dan, would you recommend someone see Venom in theaters?
If you care about Venom at all, sure. If you're anyone else, it's not worth your money.
I kind of agree. It's like if you like Venom, even if you like Spider-Man, it's worth seeing, because if you like Spider-Man, you've seen Venom and you want to see him on the big screen. And when I say big screen, not the one in your living room. If you don't really care, it's one that I would wait for it to be streamable. I'll wait till it shows up on Amazon or Netflix. But I would still say check it out, just because it's different.
Yeah, like on Rotten Tomatoes, I think this is the same case. Like the Metascore is 35, user score is a whopping 6.5.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, it's like 30% critics and 89% from the audience.
Yeah,
it's made for a specific fan group, and that fan group likes it.
It's a pretty bad movie, but it's kind of got the same case that like a lot of these DC movies do, where it represents the characters in a light where the fans love it.
And it has a strangely dedicated fan base as a result.
But I feel unlike the DC movies, Venom, because they just solely focus on him, it's a little easier to present him to non-comic book fans.
It's true. So now, coming up later this month, the one that we really want to see is this Halloween sequel / soft reboot /
So much like The Predator, this is the case of just Hollywood trying to win the award for dumbest titles for movies, because it's just called Halloween.
Again.
Even though it is supposed to be a direct sequel to the original Halloween, ignoring all of the other sequels. Why don't they call it like Halloween, the real 2?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know why they just don't call it Halloween 2. Because, yes, there's already a Halloween 2, but if this is the one you want people to think of as the sequel, you might as well have them confuse it in a Google search with that one than with the original that's actually meant to be remembered by this sequel.
So there's that. Yeah, I kind of want to see that. I also really want to see, I think this comes out before Halloween, Bad Times at the El Royale, which we still don't know what it's about.
Actually, is that out right now?
That'll be out this weekend. I'm almost certain.
I kind of want to double check that because, yep, you're right. It's coming out this weekend.
First Man is also opening this weekend.
I have no interest in seeing that. It's just like, it's a jumped up biopic that's generated a ton of political controversy, and people are just being really stupid on either side. Like, the filmmaker's like, we don't want to put the American flag in the movie. Why? Because global achievement. Why for real? Because China.
We talked about this before. Yeah. Whether we come back with Bad Times at the El Royale or Halloween or First Man,
Get out.
No, that movie came out a couple years ago.
This has been Dead Man Walking.
I'm Dan.
I'm not here.
No, he's Louie.